So, I'm Paul Jolly, and I'm interviewing Fahim Qureshi in respect of the Accidental Archivist project that we're running with funding through the National Lottery Heritage Fund. So, Fahim, just going to make this kind of casual.
Yeah, sure.
When were you born? Were you born in Luton?
I was born in Yorkshire in 1960, December the 26th, 1960. So I'm sort of the first generation of, second generation British Asian. My parents came here in 1958 from Pakistan. So I was born in Yorkshire, Bradford in 1960.
So there's a Bradford connection, yeah.
Yeah, so we moved to Luton in 1963.
Oh, wow.
So Dad got a job at Vauxhall Motors, like everyone else. So we moved in 1963 to Luton.
Yeah, because I mean Vauxhall, well, they're employing about 20,000 people, I think, in those days.
In those days, yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So, and what school did you go to locally?
So I went, Leagrave Junior School, infants and juniors, then Chorney High School for boys, in like early 70s, 1970s. And then when Lee Manor High School on Marsh Farm was built, I transferred to Lee Manor in 1974.
Right.
It opened in 1974. I was part of the first cohort.
Wow.
So I went to Lee Manor High School 1974 to 1976, and then Luton Sixth Form College for a year. Got kicked out of Luton Sixth Form College for being too radical, and then went to Barnford College to study Foundation Art and Design.
Yeah. And was it around that time you first came into 33, or did you come in earlier?
I came in earlier, really. I got involved. So living on Marsh Farm in the mid 1970s, a few of us young people got together and organised a film group, cine group, making movies on Super 8. And we were self-organised young youth group called Matrix, and we made films about Marsh Farm and about social themes, really. So we expressed ourselves through film and through cine film, because that's the most accessible medium to us, Super 8 cine film, Standard 8 and Super 8. And through that activity, because we used to meet in people's homes, and then got involved in Marsh House. We started meeting in Marsh House to do our planning. And through that Matrix film group, we were connected to Reflex.
Yes.
Reflex Arts Group. So my first involvement with 33 was through Reflex, because Reflex went on to initiate the whole 33 Art Centre project and initiative, really. So in about 1975, 76, I think 1976 possibly, to the tail end of when I was at school, between school and Sixth Form College, got involved with Reflex through Matrix Film Club.
So it was in days of pop-up shops and that.
Through the So when you had the pop-up shops and pop-up events and that, and at that time, Reflex used to. I think Reflex initiated the Luton Community Arts Trust.
Yeah, that came a little bit once they started to identify 33 as a building.
Yeah. So we used to meet at 33 before it was 33, when it was run, when the Arts Council of Luton stored its costumes.
That's right.
At what was 33 Guildford Street.
Yeah.
And I remember attending some meetings of the Arts Trust. I think I may have been on the Arts Trust through involvement at Matrix.
Yeah.
And then that led to involvement with the 33 initiative, really.
Yeah.
So my involvement predates 33. My involvement goes back to Reflex.
Yeah, and so you would have been, if my memory's correct, you would have been the one of the youngest, you and Ricky.
Ricky at the age of 16.
Yeah.
And I know that at 33 it was the storage for the costumes of some of the amateur dramatic groups, but also bands used to rehearse there pre-33, I believe. I remember a band rehearsing there. Went to a band rehearsal. Yeah. I think people just had keys to get in.
That's right. It was before it was kind of
very informal. And then I think with Reflex we got involved in a project on Farley Hill Estate, community festival at Farley Hill, and then there was a German film company called Liberation Films.
Yeah, I remember that.
That were filming a group called Freeform from Hackney,
yeah,
who were involved in the Farley Hill Festival. So it's like a number of different levels.
Yeah,
and then we got involved, I think, through Reflex, who told us to turn up to Farley Hill for the Freeform project. Got us. I think you were involved. Reflex were involved.
Yeah, I did some work at. I did some work for Freeform in Hackney.
Yeah,
as part of a project that the council ran. So I was sort of seconded there.
Oh, right, okay.
Chat's Palace and all
yeah.
So all those days.
Yeah, so we got involved in that project as young filmmakers at Farley Hill, and then made the connection with Freeform, and then we went back to Freeform to edit the film.
Yeah.
And the film was all about festivals. But in the meanwhile, Liberation Films from Germany were making a documentary about the whole thing for Germany.
Yeah. I wonder if that still exists, that film somewhere.
May do.
Because it was Peter Horn, wasn't it? Was it
Peter Horn?
Yeah.
There's a young chap called Andrew.
Can't place
Andrew and Jean McClements. She was involved.
Yeah.
At the time, but Peter Horn was like the community activist, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's a quite radical character.
Yeah. And that was all about radical. Yeah, it was all very, very, very radical social arts activists, community arts activists that are embedded in the heart of their communities, and that was the ethos in those days.
Yeah, because I always remember the debates with Peter about should we get funding for the Arts Centre because it was in the centre of town and all of this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
He was very much involved in wanting to set up these core community groups around the town.
Yeah, so and I remember at the time, Tim Powell was in Reflex, and Tim talking to me and Ricky about the ideas for Luton looking for a space, and like Tim was going around, and I think with yourselves, identifying potential spaces in the town centre that we could create, that something could be created for that community that wanted to, be out and about all hours, watching movies and that. And so just going back, so with Reflex, we got involved in the stuff at the Royal Hotel.
Yeah.
And supporting that. So me and Ricky would turn up and do kind of voluntary work with Reflex initiatives at the Royal Hotel. That meant collecting beer glasses at the Royal Hotel for some of the gigs that that Reflex were organising to fund some of the arts activity. And then we got involved with Reflex's first Sunday of the month film club.
Well, there's the first Sunday of the month was the Arts Club, I think.
The Arts Club, showing films upstairs at the Royal Hotel.
Yeah, I'm not sure was it called First Sunday? I think it might have been.
It was first Sunday of the month.
But I know that Gerard used that for his Sunday morning painting things.
Yeah. But there was a film upstairs, film club at the film club upstairs.
At the Royal, yeah.
At the Royal.
Yeah.
And then, Reflex had this kind of like portable projection booth, really bloody heavy, modular construction that me and Ricky, our jobs was to help put that in place and then collect tickets from the sort of like 5 or 6 punters turning up to watch the. And then so we had, and I remember the films that were shown, experimental films, very much experimental films, Stan Brakhage and those kind of experimental films. And so, from like 1970, my involvement was 1976 onwards, from very much 1976, 1977, that kind of experimental arts offer was being presented through Reflex activities. No one else was doing that.
No.
certainly in the area or outside of London, possibly. And then connections with the London Filmmakers Collective, I believe, possibly, and that. So that's my involvement from pre-33 days that led into 33, because the kind of need for some kind of base to be established to contain all that activity, to bring those people together, to bring those audiences, those artists, those users all together, led to establishing 33, but led to the governance around 33 through establishing, I think, Luton Community Arts Trust, and convening meetings and having some governance and making the case and identifying premises. And these were all going on at the same time, but then incrementally they led, one fed into the other. So Tim was going around scouting potential premises, and me and Ricky went with Tim to somewhere in Cardiff Street. He identified somewhere in Cardiff Street. Cardiff Road?
Cardiff Road, yeah.
Cardiff Road. Yeah. That could be a potential location for this kind of initiative that would bring all those activities together.
Yeah, I think, at the end of the day, it was a desperation of not finding anywhere or being able to do deals that kind of made us look back at 33, I think, in terms of the building and negotiations with the then Luton Arts Council, wasn't it?
Yeah. But the building belonged to the council, didn't it? 33.
Did, yes.
The council actually owned the 33 Guildford Street hat factory, which was used as storage for lots of amateur groups.
Yeah, and I think
is my recollection
no, I think
correct?
That's pretty well. I mean, we're all going through different ideas about particular dates.
Yeah,
and that's why where the Accidental Archivist comes from, because we didn't keep incredible records like a lot of groups did at that time. And
so my connections is like 76, 70, maybe 75, even as early as 75.
I think between 75 and 76, what you're talking about.
Was basically with yourself, Tim Powell and Linda Farrell, Muddy, and through Reflex, through the events at Royal Hotel, First Sunday of the Month Film Club, the Random Band, just getting involved in those activities, and then it kind of graduated to Luton Community Arts Trust, and then everything that came after that.
Yeah.
So then sort of moving on from there, when the trust got the go ahead for 33 to establish something at 33. I remember going along to 33 and helping knock down walls and pulling rubble out.
Yeah.
So that was all in a voluntary capacity.
Were you involved in sort of building the soundproof room with all the
tyres underneath? Yeah. No, I was involved. Yeah. So prior to that was built, that we were sort of dragging. Someone was knocking down walls, and then we were shoveling rubble into great big crates, and then dragging them out of the building into a skip or something. That's what I vividly remember.
Yeah.
So that's my kind of involvement, and then obviously when 33 was set up.
Yeah. So when it was set up, you maintained doing things there, didn't you?
Yeah.
Within the kind of the film group, this was kind of more formalised, became more formalised.
Yeah. So I, tested ideas, experimental ideas. Some of them worked, some of them obviously didn't work, but that we had the space to do stuff and experiment, and that's why. And my first job was at 33. But going back to Reflex, I remember the first time I ever ate pizza in my life was after a Reflex activity. We went to a cafe in Hightown and had a pizza, and I didn't, and I never had eaten pizza or never knew about pizzas in my life. And I think it was in 1976. I had a pizza.
Yeah, that cafe was.
So I don't know. Can you remember that?
I can remember the cafe, and I can remember that we used to.
And the pizza was called Vesuvius because it had lots of chilies, chili on it, and olives, black olives. Yeah,
there's one nice recollection of that, going to that. Well, there's two. One is the people show going in there once, and then a fight breaking out between a couple of the actors in there. And then Tim and I were in there, and I think Muddy might have been there as well. But the fire broke out opposite, and
Okay.
Tim and I were forming a band, and we didn't think anything of it. But we raised the alarm, and in the week's newspaper, the following week's Luton News, it said the alarm was raised by late night diners. So we formed a band called Late Night Diners. So all of these things join up.
Yeah.
That was a great place for that.
Yeah. So it's kind of like it merged. It kind of not merged, but it transitions from Matrix Cine Club in Marsh Farm, Reflex involvement, Luton Community Arts Trust, establishment of 33. Then I went away to art college at Leeds Polytechnic. I studied fine art, and I kept in touch when I was back with stuff at 33 when the art centre was established. And then my first job was on a manpower service scheme at 33 as part of the community arts team. But I remember coming, my late parents were involved in, not the cafe, but they had a kind of like a counter service of vegetarian curry offer.
Yeah.
They used to sort of turn up at 33 every Saturday doing chickpea curry in pita bread.
That's right. That's before the vegetarian cafe was
before the vegetarian
drove it. Yeah,
that led to the vegetarian, and through that involvement, when Reflex used to organise organise the gigs at Marsh House, the Marsh House gigs in the park, in the green space, the festivals. They used to go and they were the only food stall serving chickpea curry.
That's right.
There was no other stall, and they used to run out. They used to sell out, and then used to go home and cook some more and bring some more down, because they used to live in Marsh Farm up the road.
Yeah. So that relationship with Marsh House was quite important there, because there were some great bands, obviously. You were helped organise.
Yeah. So it's like a potted my history of being involved in the arts is a bit like a potted history of the development of 33 and the whole development of that community arts movement, and indeed the kind of contemporary art movement in Luton. You know, without that history and that legacy, none of what we have in Luton, I don't think, can exist. And obviously my involvement was 75, 76 onwards, and there was a history before that, obviously, through Reflex, you know, and then before Reflex through yourselves as arts activists and that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So, I mean, one of the things that which coming out of this particular project is the way the arts are funded now, and you know, which is basically top down to those days when things were funded from the bottom up. You know.
I certainly. I mean, we never had any funding from Reflex. It was very much irrespective of funding. It was very much self-organised, very much bottom up. And taking your own initiative. We were activists. We were you know, in the kind of we just made things happen, and I think that was the ethos. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be funding now. I'm saying that funding needs to be democratised, and it should be available, and those resources. We just, you know, if we wanted a building, we just went and took the building. And I remember as Matrix, that we then ran a youth club. We started the first youth club in Marsh Farm, Marsh Farm Youth Club, and we used to just they built the Jubilee Centre to coincide with the Silver Jubilee. That was the council, and we just used to sort of like pick the keys up from the housing office, open the Jubilee Centre up ourselves, 2 16-year-olds, and run the place ourselves. And that was the ethos. You know, there was. Can you imagine 16-year-olds doing that now, or being allowed to do that now?
It would be impossible, and I think that's part of the argument. You know, certain factors, you know, about health and safety, and organisation, ownership by you know, big organisations of the arts. It's kind of
I mean, you know, the same risks exist then. But it was like, you know, we trusted ourselves as young people to look after ourselves and look after our own well-being, you know, and we made sure quite, you know, so 16-year-olds are perfectly capable of doing all this kind of stuff, but it's the kind of rules and regulations and the bureaucracy that stops this, and it's kind of killed all initiative I believe.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with
And
that.
the bureaucratization of being able to do stuff has killed that. So I think the key thing for me at that time was self-organisation, and do it yourself. And that kind of ethos led to the kind of punk ethos that came out in 1976, 1977 and onwards. So obviously, I got caught up in all that because we were already embedded in that ethos of doing things for ourselves.
Yeah.
And challenging authority as well.
Yeah. So that kind of edge has gone out, hasn't it? In some ways now, apart from, activists. Activists are still important now, I think.
Yeah. That edge has gone out. I think there's certain things that are happening in Luton that still keep that ethos. The Marsh Farm, Marsh House initiative with the Marsh Farm outreach. They're very much of that ethos. Just to make things happen. We've got resources. Let's deploy those resources for the benefit of the community. If someone's got a good idea, they walk in there and make it happen. And the whole kind of 33 movement came out of that. I don't know the ins and outs of who. I know the council supported that, and it was a Tory council at the time. The borough council was a Tory council. Yeah,
unfortunately, all our problems only came about when we had a Labour council, which is bizarre, because the Tory council at that time realised there was a need for arts, but they didn't want to organise it. And so we ticked a box for them in a kind of very radical left field way. Which was interesting. And I mean, just quickly before going on to what you did, again, it was interesting those times with the council having, I think at that time, recreation services, which was the arts and the plant people coming together in one place.
That kind of, so later on, that kind of connection with the council was like, once again, activists, individuals that you can even name still. You can name the Howard Hands. You can name what's his name, the director at the time,
John Maddox.
Yes. Although he was a bit more suited and booted. Howard Hand, and yourself at Marsh House, Paul Jolly, and Mike Beaver, but he was involved in the sports side. So also I got involved in play schemes at Marsh House in 1976 after leaving school, and I came across you as well in 1976 at Marsh House. And all those kind of connections.
And they was the days of inflatables where
we
make them and throw the people on.
So Reflex as an organisation, as a collective, I think, I don't know what the governance was, but as a collective, were very entrepreneurial because they had the different arms of income generation. You had the inflatable that was made by Reflex and put out in different festivals. All over the county, I think, at the time, because I went with it. I was volunteering with it. You had the gigs in the pub rock gigs in the Royal Hotel. Was another strand of income that funded the arts activity, the kind of experimental arts activity that wasn't commercial, that was experimental. You had that, the random band stuff, the people show, bringing the people show to Luton. And the film club, the film screenings, the experimental film screenings. So the model was quite entrepreneurial, to bring income in, to subsidise the pure experimental arts activity, and it was a model that now people would sort of chop their arms off for.
For sure.
And they have really high level, highly paid managers developing, trying to run those activities. It's all done voluntary basis.
I mean, and I think you were involved in that when, and I know Linda was, when Mrs. Biswas did her sitar classes and
sitar and tabla classes.
And I think Linda said to me the other day. By the way, Linda Farrell's here in the room, but the Indian embassy didn't fund it. They were asked for money. But in the end, the money came through a Pakistani community group, didn't it?
Well, that's what I remember.
Even though it was a Hindu thing.
Yeah.
Mrs. Biz was
Was
said
it?
to go to the Indian High Commission
Yeah.
to look at funding it for Indian
Yeah.
music
Yeah.
lessons,
Yeah.
but we couldn't get the money from them, so we approached the Pakistani High Commission and they provided it.
Wow.
So there you go.
And at that time, there were not very many Pakistanis in Luton.
No.
And certainly they wouldn't be involved, apart from me, they wouldn't have been involved in that activity.
No, so it's more like supporting South Asian arts as well.
That's
which
right,
is
yeah.
interesting.
So I think 33 really got going, 1978? 79? When?
Yeah, I mean, the building was there 76, 77, wasn't it?
The building was there before.
Yeah.
But
The charity was formed, Luton Community Arts Trust as a charity was registered in 78.
I went to the inaugural, that's right, I was at the inaugural meeting with Ricky.
You could have been, yeah.
And it was at the Luton Arts Council building at 33 Guildford Street.
Yes.
I was there.
Yeah.
I remember that meeting.
Yeah.
You must have minutes from that meeting somewhere.
I'm sure George Collins got minutes.
George has got that, yeah. And I remember George, yeah. There must be minutes from that, but I remember that meeting. I was at that meeting.
Right. Crazy.
And I'd probably, if there are minutes and the attendance, it'd be Matrix Cine Club or Matrix Film Club representatives.
So how long did, aside to the 33, how long did Matrix go on for? Quite a while.
Well, it kind of merged into 33.
Yeah, so it just became the same.
It just became part of that offer. Me and then Ricky then went off working, and then went off to the States. And we did one movie called Focus on Marsh Farm. God knows where that is, but that was given money from Eastern Arts, £50 from Eastern Arts, and lots of Super 8 cine film from Kodak in Hemel Hempstead. They gave us about 20 reels.
That's right, Kodak connection. I've forgotten all about that.
Kodak, we wrote to them.
Yeah.
And that. So Matrix basically became part of the whole 33 offer.
Yeah.
I think 33 must have mocked up a lot of initiatives, not as a takeover, but people sort of like put their energies
film
in.
and video group at 33 grew out of all of
That's
that
right.
activity, with Dermot and Reagan
That's
further,
right.
Further down the line, obviously.
So for me, I think the 33 was a combination of a lot of that film activity, a lot of that film exhibition activity as well, the screening of films, the making of films, for the photography offer, and all that, and then obviously the kind of performative offer, the venue offer, of kind of theatre, fringe theatre. I mean, before the fringe theatre, there was 33.
Absolutely.
And there was Reflex.
Yeah.
That predates all of that.
Yeah.
Really.
So when you finished at Leeds, what happened?
Yeah. So I finished in 1983. Just to go back, sorry. And so look, are you going to touch on the impact of 33 on my life or not?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll save it till then. Yeah. I can edit this out. So Leeds, I finished in 1983. And my intention was to stay in Leeds because there's so much going on in Leeds, and it just opened my horizons, widened my horizons. And for one reason or another, mainly for economic reasons, I couldn't afford to stay in Leeds. I was, I couldn't claim benefits there, I couldn't get a job there. And so after staying in Leeds throughout the summer, I came back to Luton, and then obviously started looking around for work. And luckily there was a job, there was a scheme at 33, which was funded through Manpower Services for young people who were unemployed at the time.
Yeah.
And I think there was a job at 33 joining the community arts team, so I applied for it. I was interviewed by Muddy and got it.
Yeah.
So that was that. So I worked there until that tranche of funding ran out.
Yeah. Basically,
as part of the community arts team, and running a little gallery. I think the gallery was in 35 Guildford Street, the room downstairs.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. So we must have taken over 35 at that time.
At that time,
just because
in 1983, it expanded to 35 as well.
Interesting, the Manpower Services scheme started in 1983 because wasn't even sure of that, so that's really good.
Yeah.
And you were the photographer when you had the dark room.
The dark room.
Upstairs.
Upstairs.
35.
Yes. So I was running for public photography workshops. So I must have run the first workshops in 35, and we had all this kind of. I remember the darkroom was really well equipped with Durst enlargers and stuff, but the cameras were all kind of second-hand.
Yeah, of course.
You know, the Bronica camera and sort of second-hand lights and that. So, but we just made it happen. We just made things happen. And I used to run photographic workshops, teach people how to develop film with the developing tanks and the bags.
Yeah, the bags.
The bags, yeah. And then print up photographs and that. And but I was helping with the launch of 33. When 33 was launched, you were running up and down, taking photographs of the guests, developing them and giving them half an hour later, developing and printing them, and then handing those instant photography. Yeah. Instant photography in Luton started at 33 Arts Centre at the launch of 33, on the launch night, where you were running around giving out pictures to people. Do you remember that?
Yeah. The launch of 33 what? Records?
No, the Art Centre, 33 Arts. When we launched 33, the night that we launched.
Launch, wasn't there? Exhibition showing people's spaces.
Showing people's spaces and stuff going on in different spaces. And then, because the dark room was up, I think the dark room was up and running, and then Paul was taking photographs, developing the negatives, processing the film, black and white film, and then printing them up, and then going around drying the prints and hanging them out.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Day of the life that was.
Can you remember
18-hour day.
Yeah, and when was the launch event then?
Do you know? I can't remember. I remember the launch. I can't remember the date. I mean, part of this project.
But this was prior to 83, because I remember it must have been 79, 80 maybe.
Well, if it had been then, we wouldn't have had 35.
No, but we had the dark room was in 35. 33 originally.
We had the upstairs was in the.
When you where Dermot stayed that time later in life.
Yeah, and Ray.
Yeah,
that's where it was. That's where I remember going from.
Yes.
Top floor.
To
the front.
Yeah.
But you're right. The running up and downstairs.
Running up and downstairs, and instant photography was invented in Luton. Possibly in the UK was invented at 33 Arts Centre.
That was pre-Polaroids. Well, Polaroids existed, but we didn't have
Yeah. So after graduating, I came back to work. That was my first ever job. Was 33 Guildford Street, 1983. Community arts team. I was the photography coordinator. I ran the dark room. I ran photographic workshops. I also coordinated photographic exhibitions at in the gallery. In the first gallery. So as part of that role, and it was a paid role, as part of that role, I remember with the exhibitions I used to go, and there was an organisation in Bethnal Green, photographic collective called Camera Works, and they did touring exhibitions, and I used to go and pick the exhibitions up. I used to go down on the train from here over to Bethnal Green, up Roman Road, and pick up select exhibitions and pick that exhibition up and bring it back. And the exhibitions were in boxes, in black, like folio boxes. I used to carry them by myself on the train back, and they were kind of like laminated with eyelets, and they used to come and pin them up.
That's right.
And I don't know how that relationship with Camera works out. Was it me, or was it an existing relationship?
No, I don't think it was an existing relationship that way. Because, I mean, one of the things about 33, as you know, is that people would pop in with ideas and projects, and you'd just be a nod and a wink, and off there we'd go and get it going. Because
so those exhibitions would cost £15, or sometimes they'd be free. And I used to just go and pick them up, book them, pick them up, come back, put them up. And I had my own first photographic exhibition of the work that I did at Leeds. I put that up. And Tim did a poster. So there's a poster that exists somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah, you've got material archive bits and pieces, have you, or not?
Possibly, yeah. Negatives, and I had a print of I had a black and white print. Yeah, I've got some prints somewhere of 33. the cafe and of the film and video workshop, the editing suite.
Yeah.
The first one.
Yeah.
I've got that somewhere, and I did a photo session with the late Steve Harle.
Yes.
And printed some of his photographs up, and so some of those prints that were printed at 33 and taken at 33 are now in the UKDK Communities Archive.
Yes.
That Sponner's got.
Yeah.
So I gave them, I donated them,
Yeah.
and he's actually got the original photos, but I've got some negatives, black and white negatives. And so when the Manpower Services Scheme ran out, I kind of stayed on, and I was and the Arts Council, your Arts Council officer at the time, was urging me to stay on as a volunteer, and I did. But then then on the back of that, I got a job more or less straight away, and that was my first job out of Luton at Ipswich, as an arts officer.
Oh right. Yeah, I couldn't remember whether you went straight to London. You see.
No, I went to Ipswich for nearly 2 years at the Ipswich Museums and Art Gallery, and I was their first ethnic arts officer.
Wow.
So I went to Ipswich for about nearly 2 years and working there as a result of 33. So I obviously used 33.
We gave you a reference, perhaps.
You gave me a reference, yeah. Must have done. I'm working, and then the rest is history, really, because I went from 2 years working in Ipswich, then became an arts officer for Hackney Council, stayed there 15 years, and then the rest is all history. I've been involved professionally in the arts, working as an arts administrator, as an arts manager for the last 38 years. And I still
do it now.
Still doing it now. Yeah. Hopefully making things happen, trying to influence stuff, trying to make things happen. I've never been involved in me.
Yeah.
It's always been we. What role can I play behind the scenes in making things happen? How can I promote artists and organisations, and how can I within the framework that I work within, to subvert that and support activity. So I've always tried to support. Yeah. When I was in Luton, when I came back to Luton, and worked for the council, I've always tried to support 33 or SNAP or whatever it became, afterwards, in initiatives that I've been involved in. Because when I came back to Luton to work, after I went to Hackney. Then I went to work for Kilburn Festival, and I worked on some national initiatives briefly. And then Watford Council for a year as arts manager. Then I got the job at Luton Borough Council as the arts development manager. And doing that, I came back as arts development manager was based at the Artesium, which wasn't the Artesium, but it was the building. And it wasn't in the public domain. So my initial role as arts development manager was to put it in the public domain, to work with the Director of Leisure, and SNAP, the SNAP project of 33 had moved out of 33. The whole 33 operation had moved out and moved into the former Artesium building. They said we used to call it the former Artesium, and that's when I reconnected. Because I didn't know what happened to 33. And because the building had been kind of written off health and safety wise, so that's why I reconnected with Linda and yourself and stuff. So
that kind of basic 33 experience gave you the ethos about the community being involved in arts.
No, certainly that 33 ethos and that reflex ethos and that kind of bottom up has had an impact throughout my life, really, in terms of arts and everything, but certainly in the arts, I've always been cynical of this kind of the bureaucracy within the sector. I've always been cynical of the way that the sector's become. Very self-centered, very top-down, very individualistic. People getting their careers out of it, because I've got a career out of it, but I could have been much higher up the food chain if I adopted that ethos by treading over everyone else to establish myself. I mean, some of the people I work with and been my been my I've worked with at the same level of that. They've gone up, gone off and developed international arts programs. Are directors, international directors of the British Council, and that. And I'm still where I'm an arts programmer in the London Borough of Richmond. They would probably say, or the industry would probably say, oh, you weren't ambitious enough. But I've always tried to support and had an empathy for communities and community initiative and helping others and trying to make things happen with others rather than developing my own personal career or my develop myself personally.
During that career, were you able to keep part of your own creativity going at all? Did you carry on with?
I tried. It's harder, It was harder. I think my creativity was to try and make things happen, to become a producer. They call it being a producer now in the industry, but being an organizer, being an arts organizer, just to sort of like make things happen, to make events happen, to make festivals. So that my creativity went into that. To program, to organise, to produce, rather than kind of practical creativity, because technology changed as well, and that.
Now we've got AI.
Now we've got AI, So that ethos has always kind of underpinned everything I've done, and without my involvement with Reflex and 33, I don't think I would have got a career. In the arts.
No, I mean we've all maintained that, and 33 has kind of,
I would have been
individual lives. It's kind of
I would have been a kind of like working in an accounts office or being a clerical person or and that. But maybe a doctor if I'm lucky. But I don't think I would have been a doctor. Well, not clever enough. But certainly, and I've worked more or less in the industry for 38 years, never been out, only for a few months or maybe a year, but I've worked consistently within the art sector. And then, when I didn't think of myself as a Pakistani a person of colour or whatever in those days working in the sector. But when I think back on it, I was one of the very few people who was non-white British working in that sector, and as I went through that sector, and certainly from my background, Pakistani Muslim background, there were very few at that time, no one really. So now there are many more working in that sector.
That's really interesting. I mean, in those days that's very true, but there was no kind of way that people would point in terms of developing different arts for the communities, different communities. So the arts were there and open to everyone. There was no.
And 33 were doing that programming possibly for communities or for those art forms before it all started. I mean, Linda talks about the sitar and tabla classes. Mrs. Biz was. You're doing that in sort of like late 70s, early 80s. Before any of the institutions were doing that. Given that space, in Luton having tabla and sitar classes in the early 1980s was unheard of. Really. Especially from a white institution, although 33 was not a white institution.
I know what you mean.
You know what I mean? Unheard of, but just allowing that. We did, as part of the Manpower Service Scheme, we did an international festival on 33. Remember? And working not only at 33, but working with some, working with the international social club in Bury Park. Which was a blues club. Like reggae blues club, late night club. Working with them, doing stuff with them. The first international festival in '83 was doing stuff at the Luton Carnival, with the random
I was
band.
going to say about Carnival because it was more organic then, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Carnival.
Carnival was much
People
more.
came together and
Yeah.
and in
Yeah.
a different kind of way.
Yeah. So Carnival, I mean, Howard and Janet started Carnival.
I know.
Howard Han,
Yeah.
Janet Park in '76,
Yeah.
with the parade. Because I remember that. I remember that first Carnival. It was. I don't know if there was a parade, but it was like in the town centre stages to celebrate the fact that the centenary of Luton having borough status. And then I remember, then obviously through that involvement with Howard and Rec Services, Reflex getting involved, and the Random Band doing pop-up performances, because I was involved in some of them, and that. So, and it was more spontaneous, more pop-up, less structured, and then that obviously evolved into the kind of Caribbean carnival that we had. I'm not saying that's good or bad or whatever like that, but it evolved.
Yeah.
But the first carnival, people are talking about the history of carnival. The first carnival, as such, was the Luton Borough Council initiated. I was involved in another carnival before that, which was Community Relations Council, which was in 73, 74.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was when I used to go to the summer school, the CRC summer school. At the end of the summer school, over the 4 weeks of the summer school, they used to take out a carnival procession from the CRC from Chapel Street, where summer school was held, to the CRC headquarters in Dunstable Road, and that was a community relations officer at the time called Leslie Scaife, because he was Caribbean but really into promoting carnival. I think he was from Trinidad. All that was, we used to make costume and stuff, and then there was a steel band on the back of a flatbed
lorry.
And then all the kids used to march down from Chapel Street. All the kids on the play scheme used to march down from Chapel Street.
And that was before 76?
That was before 76.
Wow.
That was 74, 73, 74.
That must have been where that picture came from, of Chapel Langley building in Chapel Street.
That building.
Do you remember we couldn't think what we were doing from there?
There's a gig poster we found.
We found a gig there.
Yeah.
And it must have been
That's to do with that.
What you were doing there.
Yeah.
It's an interesting poster because no one really can date it.
Yeah.
So
that was that. So the Caribbean Carnival has its origins there through the community relations in like 74, but then 76 is the kind of town centre stuff with the Random Band interventions and I don't know, maybe the People Show, I don't know, but certainly Reflex were involved at that time in the celebration of Carnival. Or celebration of that event in the town centre, and then Carnival then evolved. Then I lost touch with the Carnival because going away.
Yeah, we kept a relationship with Carnival for a few years.
Yeah,
and then a lot of it became very formalised. I thought,
Yeah,
but not in a too negative way.
Yeah.
There was a period when everything was just loud music on the back of flat truck.
Yeah.
But
So
it's interesting you mentioned Howard again, because he's quite pivotal as a enlightened local government officer, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, and then through yourselves, the trio, the Reflex trio, and through Howard and. That's how I got involved in the arts.
Yeah.
Because Howard used to do pop-up events in Wardown Park, Midsummer's Night Dream performance. Yes. Then there was Circus Lumiere. Remember that?
Yeah.
That came to Luton, and I got involved in that as a volunteer and the volunteer performer. I was a horse in the circus performance. I got involved in that, and I remember that we had to strip off down to our underpants, put on these bloody leather harnesses, and we were 16 at the time, and then act out, trotting around the tent, in the public. Yeah. You could never get away with that now.
No.
Under sort of, sort of child protection.
We've got a few stories about all of that.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But and then so in the 70s, in the 1978, the punk thing became quite big in Luton, and Reflex were doing punk gigs in '76 as part of your kind of music program at Royal Hotel. Yeah. And I remember going to when the Dan played.
Yes.
I think I must have been collecting beer glasses then, because it was quite, it was quite a frightening moment. There's a few people there, but they were all not happy throwing beer glasses. So the Tuesday night, I think, was the punk nights at the Royal Hotel, and then Thursday was the jazz rock night, and the Saturday was the rock night. Yeah. Saturday was the most popular night at the Royal Hotel. So the Reflex used to run 3 nights at the Royal Hotel. Am I correct?
No, and yes, but there was then the film club as well there.
The film club was a Sunday upstairs.
Upstairs, yeah.
And then some stuff with the People Show and the Random Band, all that kind of stuff. So then the punk stuff moved to from the Royal to 33, when 33 got established in the performance room upstairs. Yeah. And then the punk gigs, and mainly were UKDK. Yeah. And I was putting on gigs at Barnfield College when I was there with the Resistors, which was the precursor to UKDK. Yeah. And then one of our lecturers at Barnfield College on the Foundation Art course was Al Rees.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I do remember
Al Rees.
Yeah.
And he was involved with Reflex as well, with Tim and the film.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to him in the end.
He lived in Luton, but then he also lived in London, in Tottenham Court Road. Yeah. I don't know what happened to him.
No.
Tim might know.
I remember going to Al Rees's house when he lived just off the Tottenham Court Road. That's right.
That's right. Yeah.
I forgot. We went there.
He had a flat, didn't he?
He had a flat. Yeah. It's off of a quite tall building.
Yeah. Off the Tottenham Court Road. I think I went there once as well. Yeah. I went there once, a couple of times, but I remember Al. He was, and the energy that you lot had was an energy that kind of I was attracted to at the time. Me and Ricky learnt so much from that wisdom, and that wisdom has had an impact, throughout my life, and I'm still involved in activism. Yeah, political activism, local activism, arts activism. Yeah. I've always been involved, possibly at the expense of sort of furthering my own personal career, and because I haven't done the right things or said the right things to please the right people. Yeah. So what?
I mean, it's interesting now that I've been really thinking about it recently. Is that 50 odd years on, that people are now doing pop-up shops again, and the whole thing has gone full circle, because there is a need for that activism, and that need for creative people to be able to come together without Big Brother overlooking them. And
well, community arts, actually, the term community arts became a swear word within the arts sector.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh no, we don't do community art. That's old, But now community arts is back again. Yeah. It's always been there. Yeah. It's had different arts development, or or community-led activity. But the whole ethos of community arts is what the Arts Council invested in. Yes. Have been invested in for the last 10 years under Creative People in Places. Yeah. They poured millions in, right, and they've bureaucratised it, and they've taken away and some of those programs have failed for the Arts Council because of the bureaucratisation of it. Yeah. Where it's very, very simple. Yeah. You just let the people decide.
Absolutely. Well, we had those arguments when we used to meet when they were first setting up People in Places, didn't they? That we had those meetings.
Endless meetings over bureaucratization. You have to take risks, right? And in those days there weren't risks. It just was natural. Yeah. But now it's about risk taking, and trusting people, and getting rid of bureaucracy, layers and layers of bureaucracy, to make things happen. And there's a kind of there's a tendency to cover your back, cover your butt, emails and policies and procedures and strategies and this and that, and none of that works. What works is action, a call to arms, a call to action, and just making things happen, and making and the impact of what Reflex did, what 33 did, in my personal life, has had a lasting legacy since 1976. So how many years is that? 76, 80, 90, 2006, 2016, plus 4, that's 44,
and then
plus 3.
4. Yeah,
So,
3, yeah.
Yeah, so 47 years,
Yes.
right? That's the legacy and the impact,
Yeah.
the social impact on this one personal individual that Reflex and that whole 33 experience has had. 47, and I've traced that back 47 years, and I can safely say that's had an impact on me. All that involvement, all that ethos.
Yeah.
So how can how does the Arts Council or the National Heritage Lottery Fund this is a real impact. You're talking to an individual, and hopefully through this project you'll be talking to individuals as well who have had impacts to their lives. So this is not about reminiscence.
No.
This is not a reminiscence project, or we're reminiscing about the good old days. This is about impacts, social and the legacy. It's about impacts and legacy, and using that and I still apply that to wherever I can have an influence within the arts, within the sector. I still apply that ethos. I still apply the 33 ethos, the Reflex ethos to my present day work within the sector to influence that sector.
And that's it's mightily important now, I think.
It's very important.
Yeah.
It's very important because we've got to deconstruct this art sector, this professionalisation, because everywhere you go up and down the country, there are buildings, there are resources, there are equipment, there are workers that are just sitting around doing nothing.
Yeah.
Really, when they can be having an impact.
Yeah.
If those resources are redeployed to to the right people.
Yeah, to creative people.
To creative people.
Yeah.
I mean, Luton, we've got buildings that are sitting around doing nothing.
And we have a really big creative community.
We have a creative community that are waiting for resources to make things happen.
Yeah.
And the two are so disparate.
Yeah.
So disparate. But that is replicated everywhere.
Yes. Yeah, I know it's not just a Luton.
It's not just but in Luton, in Luton there is such a vibrant creative community. Where can that creative community meet?
Yeah.
Where can they congregate around? At the moment, the only place it is in Marsh House.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are doing it because that's all because the ethos there.
Yeah.
It's certainly not in the town centre. There's nowhere in the town centre.
No, it's been overpriced, out of the reach of people anyway.
So what we need to do, and hopefully what this project will do, is map that ethos, but then look forward to say it's a call to action. We need to remember that ethos, remember what happened, apply it to the present day, and then move forward with that ethos in mind. Because we've always had a vibrant community.
Absolutely.
In Luton. It just hasn't happened in the last few years. It's always been there.
Yeah.
But there's possibly far more resources now.
Yeah.
But there's a professionalisation of the sector, which has possibly led to kind of like alienating people and keeping people out. And we need to break down those barriers. We need to tear down those barriers and stream through.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Fahim. It's been great. Is there anything you'd like to add to all of that? I think you've said what it's important.
I think this accidental anarchist, is it?
No.
Archivist.
It's all a misspell. Yeah, it's supposed to have been accidental archivist, anarchist.
Accidental archivist. I think this is so important, not only as a kind of like a reminiscence thing, but as a kind of like mapping. We can only move forward if we remember our past.
Yeah, for sure.
And then inform our present to move forward. I think the ethos, that radical social involvement that we established, and then that we remember it and apply it and move forward.
Yeah.
And I'm sure in the 70s, in the mid 70s and early 70s, Reflex pulled from influences from 1968 possibly. That kind of movement, that radical movement, and kind of like they pull from that past.
I think it's really important, because you just put that history in front of people, and because history changes.
Yeah.
I was at a meeting where some guy in short trousers was kind of claiming responsibility for the Hamilton Fitness stuff in Stockwood.
Yeah.
It was Howard Hand and people around him that made that happen.
Yeah. It's about making things happen. It's about recognising our past and move forward.
Yeah.
And I think this project will have an impact. This unearthing this people's archive in a non-archival way, in a kind of accessible, bottom-up way, will have a tremendous impact. It's important because now the art sector has evolved in that people come, the good and the greats turn up and say, "Oh, we're doing this." They try and say that without us there was nothing. We've done all this, Whereas there's a whole legacy, there's a whole history that predates the good and the greats that turn up to places like Luton or Hackney or whatever and pretend they've done it all.
Yeah. Great. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the space
and the opportunity.
I feel very humble, in contributing to that. But I think it's important for that, that development to be captured, and then people, younger people, reflect, looking back on that, being informed that, looking back, saying that, okay, this is what went on before us. Let's take this further.